From Renaissance Coliseum, we welcome you into the Bradley men's basketball pregame show alongside Larry Larson and Mitch Kaminski. I'm Joey Wright, recapping a big win for the Braves last night against Indiana State and a big one coming up against Southern Illinois. So, Larry, let's start with you. Dive right into it. Get your takeaways from a big win over the Sycamores last night at Carver Arena.
It was a big win, avenging that loss in Terre Haute when they only had 7 players. I think the Braves had a chip on their shoulder going into this one. They really wanted to win, especially because those two teams were tied for 4th place in the Valley standings. And we're getting into the point of the season here where every game is a big one. Every game could have implications for seeding at Arch Madness, so you want to win every game. It was a very physical matchup, a lot of whistles. I know that the players really had to adjust to that, and as did the coaches. From my perspective, coaches weren't thrilled with that. But it was a tough game for both sides. A lot of hustle, a lot of players diving on the floor, a lot of players boxing out, and just a hard-fought game on both sides. And Bradley, in the end, just had the edge because I think some clutch buckets in the second half. What would be the fourth quarter?
They did a really nice job of defense and rebounding in the second half there, which I think was key for them to pull away near the end. Like you said, some clutch shooting as well. Another big win for the standings. My biggest problem would be they've shown consistently they can win at home, which is nice. But at some point, you're going to have to start winning some road games because they're only 2-8 on the road. So, they're picking up all these victories at Carver, which is nice, and you prefer, obviously, you win those than not. But during the Arch Madness tournament, you're going to be on the road. If you hopefully win that tournament and you're going to March Madness, you're going to be at a neutral location or on the road. So I'd like to see their next big game coming up against Southern Illinois is going to be a really big test. I'd like to see them start winning on the road. But I will say this, Coach Wardle after the game said that he doesn't think the team's hit their peak yet. They're still trying to get there. So that is very encouraging to hear. Obviously, they're a lot healthier right now. So, I think it's going to be an exciting half or final stretch of basketball for the Braves.
Yeah, they definitely kind of put it together last night. You could see that, especially with having Childs back. And like you said, Wardle said in the post game, they haven't hit their peak yet. And Elijah Childs also said that they're really starting to find their flow. But it's encouraging that Coach thinks that they haven't hit their peak yet because, of course, you want to hit your peak coming up in this home stretch.
Yeah, and Larry, that really was a big win for the Braves last night because, they kind of pulled away late in the second half, but it was really a little closer than I think the final score would indicate. So that was a good win against a battle-tested Indiana State team, an Indiana State team that got them, albeit a shorthanded Braves team earlier this season. Yeah,
despite the weather, the fans showed up at Carver Arena, so it was an intense atmosphere, and the Braves controlled the whole game, you could say, because they never trailed. But Indiana State, they really had that second half surge and gave the Braves a good test. And they really responded well after Indiana State tied the game. Wardle took a timeout. They went over a play, and they set up a play to get Childs the ball in the post. He got double-teamed. He kicked it out to Canal, and he made the 3. And pretty much from there, Bradley went on to win, obviously. And the key to that was they held Indiana State without a field goal for 9 minutes. So I think that was the big key. Defense, offense, all coming together in that game.
Childs really provided a big boost for him, too, since coming back from injury. 19 points in both games. And the one against Evansville, him and Darrell really their only scoring in that one as well. So good to see him back in the lineup.
And with the win over Indiana State, the Braves now segue into a big road test this weekend against Southern Illinois. Southern Illinois, they're coming up. They're 1 game removed from a 7-game winning streak. Brian Mullins has this team playing well in his first year down in Carbondale. It's going to be a tough one for Bradley.
It is. I think this is going to be a litmus test. And as Mitch mentioned, Braves don't have a great road record, and the Bandera Center, that's proved to be a very good home court advantage for the Salukis. So this is going to be a fun one to watch. I think it's going to be a really good matchup. And the matchup that I'm watching going into this game, we'll get to this later with our picks to click, it's going to be in the paint. Marcus Damask is the second leading scorer for the Salukis. He's really stepped up for them this year. And against Elijah Childs, those two are going to match up a lot. So I think it might come down to that.
They've been kind of a poor shooting team on the road, and I know one of the things Coach Wardle also was mentioning was the foul differential. They've been kind of behind as far as fouling other teams. So hopefully they clean that up a little bit. But, yeah, they got to start learning how to win on the road, and now would be a perfect time to do it against a very solid Southern Illinois team because you mentioned it in the pregame show, all these teams are very, very close together in the standing. There are 6 or 7 teams that are very evenly matched in the middle there. So hopefully trying to get to that 2 seed with a win, which would be nice for when it comes to the conference tournament time.
And the big thing is obviously you want to avoid playing on Thursday in the Valley Tournament. And Bradley, right now, there's not an incredible danger of that happening. Right now, they've got a 2-game lead on what would be that 7th seed. But you want to win them all, especially with the Valley so tight, because one or two slips, maybe that door opens again. They're not all must-wins, but you've kind of got to win them all.
And that's why these last 2 wins for Bradley were so big at home, coming off 2 straight road losses. They really bounced back. And I think that sets them up for success coming down the stretch. And it gives them a little leeway. I mean, you got to beat the teams in the bottom half of the conference. Indiana State probably qualifies as one of those teams. And, of course, Evansville does as well. So those were big wins, even though, those teams aren't at the very tip-top of the conference.
And we saw this last year. They're playing their best basketball heading into tournament time. So I think that's these 2 wins can do is a big jumping off point. You get another road win and start playing your best basketball and peaking when it comes to that conference tournament time.
And with that, guys, let's get into our picks to click for Braves and Salukis this Saturday. Who you got?
I alluded to it earlier. I'm going to go Elijah Childs. Obviously, not a sleeper pick by any means, considering he's coming back from an injury, scoring 19 points in both of his games coming off that injury. And he doesn't look rusty at all. He's fired up. He's really providing that leadership now on the floor. He was providing it off the court for the Braves when he was injured. Now he's out there. He's fired up. He's really exciting to watch right now, and he's hitting from everywhere, really, not only in the paint, but also long range. And on defense, he's going to be really key to shut down Marcus Damask.
I'm going to go with Daryl Brown. I think that was kind of a dynamic duo, sort of a Batman and Robin thing, especially in the Evansville game. His mid-range was really working. He just moved into 9th with Bradley's all-time scoring, so that's got to count for something. But I think Daryl DB is going to have a big game. And when he wears the headband, man, I tell you, headband Daryl is a whole other ball game, so watch out.
Headband Daryl, going into the game yesterday when he wore the headband, he was averaging about 20 points. I mean, his 13-point effort bumped that down a little bit. But he's in a different mode when he's got the headband on, I think.
Headband Daryl, he'll be key for the Braves against the Salukis. Be interesting to see how that one plays out. But then going around the Valley, guys, a lot of good matchups this weekend, including what could be the game of the year, Loyola hosting Northern Iowa. Let's start there. Your picks for Panthers and Ramblers. It's going to be a fun one.
Joey, I can't wait to watch this game. I've got the Ramblers. I think Loyola has a really good home court advantage at Gentile Arena. When they pack that place, it gets loud, and it's tough to win there on the road. UNI, obviously, they're kicking into their second gear here coming down to Arch Madness. But one thing to watch, as pointed out by Bradley fan Tony Seghetti on Twitter, UNI's big names are playing tons of minutes down the stretch. A.J. Green's playing like 37 minutes a game. Trey Burhow also up there. He's got... The other night he played like 35 minutes, and they've got guys on the bench that are only playing 2 or 3 minutes. That's going to be something to watch coming down the stretch because the players could get gassed. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of let up from the Panthers in Chicago this weekend.
I'm taking the Panthers for this one for the same reason I took them last time the two teams met. I think this is going to be a great game. I can see it going either way, but A.J. Green, I think he's the best player in the Valley, and I think he's going to come through for him on the road. The minutes thing I'm not as concerned about because it's not like an NBA season where it's like going to be wearing on you. They're not playing as many games. They're still pretty. He's still pretty young. I think he's a sophomore, so I'm looking for him to have a big game, and I think Northern Iowa is going to win this one.
One more note on that. A.J. Green, Marquise Kennedy matchup is going to be really fun to watch. I think Kennedy is going to be the next great guard out of the Missouri Valley. Loyola has kind of got a machine for guards there, and I think Porter Mosher's got a good one. And Marquise Kennedy, he's a freshman, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Absolutely, and A.J. Green just picked up his 1,000th point the other night. So
yeah, as a sophomore.
Yeah, that's wild. So
kid can play.
Yeah, I'll go Ramblers as well. I like them to pull off the upset at home, a tough team to beat at home, so we'll see how that plays out. Moving around the Valley, we've got Missouri State at Indiana State. Illinois State and Valparaiso is one we'll get to a little later, but Missouri State at Indiana State, and that's going to be a fun one. Missouri State, they've got all the talent in the world, it seems like, but they haven't quite been able to put it together this season.
No, they haven't. I've got more home cooking. I've got the Sycamores in this one.
I always pick Missouri State, and every week it's saying, oh, they got talent, they just got to come together. Well, it hasn't come together yet. They stink. I'm going Indiana State, plus they're really good at home.
Fair enough. I'm going to go with Indiana State as well. Indiana State, they've played well at home this season. could be a big win, but I'm going to give Missouri State a little more credit than that.
Yeah, they've got good talent, but Indiana State, I was impressed with them the other night at Carver Arena. Trey Williams, big name to watch, 6'7" forward for them. He played pretty well against Elijah Child.
And no disrespect, Tulio De Silva, he can ball. They do have talent. It's just at some point you got to start winning some games, which they haven't yet. So they're making me look stupid. So every time I pick them, they lose. I'm going Indiana.
Fair enough, I suppose. And then Illinois State hosting Valparaiso. I remembered them all. I got all three of them.
There you go.
Yes, you did.
So we're good. But Valparaiso, Illinois State, and the Redbirds, they haven't been able to put it together this season. Valparaiso's had a nice season. They were a team that a lot of people had towards the bottom of the valley going into things, but they've played well. I've got to go with Valparaiso to pull off the road win.
I'm going with Valparaiso as well. One thing that we failed to mention when we were previewing Bradley SIU, Valpo beat Southern by around 20 the other night. They really shot the lights out, and their defense was stout, was really phenomenal, shutting down that Salukis attack. So I've got Valpo, and they're really starting to creep up the standings a little bit if they can string together some wins.
They are keep creeping up there. I'm going Valpo as well. I just think they're a much more talented team. Illinois State's kind of had a rough season, and it's going to continue in this one.
That'll about do it for our Around the Valley segment, guys. Good picks. We'll see how it plays out. We've had varying degrees of success this season, so I'm excited to see how that all shakes out. Now we'll take a look at some fun times from Carver Arena last night in the win against Indiana State. Fans were going wild. The crowd got loud late in the game, and they were loud throughout the game. Take a look. Great look there at the electric Carver Arena in that win against Indiana State. Look behind us. I think we've got Mari Petrie and Tatum Koenig getting some shots up from the women's team. Stay tuned for our women's basketball show. That should be coming to the YouTube channel right around the same time this goes up. So
Yeah, probably
be
before
fun.
ours. They
Would
play
imagine.
Friday,
Yeah.
so that'll be a big game.
And they've got a big weekend. The women do. So that'll be fun. They host Loyola on Sunday. Friday they
Host Valpo.
host Valpo. There you go. Alley-oop. We get the assist there. But fun weekend coming up for the women's team, women's pregame show on the Braves Vision YouTube channel as well. And, guys, we're about out of time for this one, the men's pregame show. Any final thoughts? Braves and Salukis swinging it out on Saturday night. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be a good one. I think this is up there with one of the biggest games of the season for Bradley. Like Mitch mentioned, like I mentioned earlier in the show, Bradley hasn't played great on the road. They played great at home. SIU, Bradley beat them at Carver. So I'm sure SIU is going to want to get even. And with a win, Bradley could climb into a second-place tie. Or, excuse me, third-place tie. They're in third place right now. I was
They
confused.
potentially get to second.
Yes, they could get to second if things fall their way. So this is a big litmus test. I don't want to say they got to win this game, but it's going to be a good one to watch for Bradley for sure.
Yep, got to end that narrative that they can't win on the road. And this is it's a very solid Southern Illinois team that they're going to be facing. I think they got to attack the paint, really try and draw some fouls there and turn the foul differential and be aggressive. Defensing and rebounding was key in their last win. I think defense can always travel. So we'll see. It should be a fun one to watch. It is definitely a very one of the bigger games they've had this season.
We'll see how it all plays out. Bradley and Southern Illinois coming up. But for Mitch Kaminski and Larry Larson, I'm Joey Wright. Thank you for joining us for the Bradley men's basketball pregame show. Thanks for watching.